you manage yourself, or all these different ways that it shows up. And, you know, I'm just big on, hey, healing is available to everybody. And we all, if you Black and brown in this country, you got some healing work to do.
Oh, you needs it.
You needs it.
Just to that point there again, man, because I think that's kind of related to what I say, like, who you are and, like, knowing your history. It's not just, like, knowing, like, what are, like, whatever the good things, like, what are the things that, like, great people did and great things about you, but it's, like, also knowing where you did hurt and where your family did hurt and how you did hurt, and why you did that hurt and why you experienced that hurt, and where that hurt is at now in your family line or in your understanding, you know. And I think, like, part of when I started learning who I am and getting these books and just putting my family in context and putting my experience on the block and now in prison in context and relationship with my mom's in context, I'm like, damn, son, like, my family is from the Delta, Mississippi. I'm like,
mine too.
We could just,
my family's from Vicksburg.
Oh, we
could just pause right there.
Yeah. And then I'm like, then we went to Jackson, but I'm like, yo, my mom's was like 12, 11, like moving up north to try to get away from this, like going to like Chicago with like aunties and stuff, holding it down, taking care of their little cousins, and then sliding New York, going to like the army, going to college, just trying to like be the best Black person, trying to run away from the deep colonial South and trying to like get free. And then she landed in New York in the 80s and the crack epidemic smacked her like after all of that. And then like she gets smacked by that. She gets smacked by incarceration. She gets smacked by like family disappointment. You a failure like in relationships.
Right.
But like as I start to understand all of that, like when I look at it, like she never also, in my experience, was she never stopped loving me though. Like I see moments when I'm like, I ask those questions and I'm like, where you at? But when I understand what she was struggling through, and when I see her in moments every day, I always felt love. I always felt protected. And I always, even when I got locked up and she came to visit me the first time and was crying, feeling really embarrassed and ashamed, which is probably what led her to go to Mississippi and stay clean. Like she kept struggling. She just kept going. So she just like, yeah, I was just telling her the other day, I was like, yo, Mom, I might write a book on you about like a story of hope. You know, I don't ever think about people think about hope this way, but like you just keep going. Like, and I know you got bad bags where like it's the struggle for Black liberation, for like our freedom is hard. And so many of us stop. And so many of us figure out like when you go through something, you feel like it's too much, and it makes sense to just to tuck it in. And I just honor spirits. I think that's what hope is. Like how and she went through some of the biggest things, even like being a mother, her daughter not talking to her. And like I still see her every day try to like love and try to like fight. And I think that's beautiful.
Absolutely. Hope is a beautiful thing.
It really is. No, I was just going to highlight what you said. My grandfather was born 1920 in Mississippi, and he had explosive anger. And I always would think back to him of those moments. And now that I'm older and the more I research and learn more about Mississippi, like I completely understand. He had a mother who didn't want them outside because she didn't want them darker, you know, because she's directly, you know, born of the plantation owner. And so understanding that helps inform myself, and then I realized I have the same anger that he has. And until I went to a healing circle with Cory that he did at a high school, I didn't realize my anger was at white people, most specifically white women, because I've been silenced in my schooling by white people, white women. At every job, it's been a white female manager over me, and then in the workplace, in advertising. And so and I'm 33, and I went to this healing circle with him, and it just unlocked it. When I heard white people at that circle, you know, apologizing for like their ignorance or like saying they want to help, I realized that's what I needed. I needed to hear my white friends from high school, you know, who were hurting me. I needed to hear that apology. So I want to now talk about like healing circles. Like, is that an ancestral tradition, and kind of what does that look like, and how does that tie into the work you do? Your spaces, it sounds like, maybe have kind of a healing circle like vibe as well, or intention.
You want to start, or you want me to jump?
Go ahead, Cory.
Yeah, I think definitely ancestral work, man. I think what I'm learning today about healing circles that like it's really important to like acknowledge and understand and invite and invoke that our ancestors is going to be driving the process, and that our ancestors are part of the process and leading the process. And I think, yeah, I see like our particular healing circles are urban rituals. You know, they have like a lot of ancestors in it, a lot of hip hop in it, a lot of knowledge about our elders and the knowledge that we come from. And all of these things, when I think about a healing circle, why you ask your ancestors to be there because you're trying to create a sacred space. You're trying to create a space between the material world and the invisible world that you can go through. You're trying to create a portal. And sometimes people use the word vulnerability. Sometimes people use the word trust. But all these things as words, but when you feel them in your body as emotions, in a moment, it become portals. It's more like a portal. And we believe our elders, talking about our elders and who we come from, talking about our ancestors, those things help create the energy for when you get into some of the interactions, like the technical stuff, the conversations, the circles, the certain topics, like we believe like the portal, the space creating, the way we come, how we prep the night before, what we have on our hearts, when we walking into the space. I'm kind of going back to the Bedford Hill sisters, and all of the work they do. They made a video called "What I Want My Words to Do." So kind of like thinking about like what I want this time with us to do for us. And that's a hard, but it becomes a ritual question to get you ready to go into the space because you don't know what you're gonna get. You know, you might got to lead into something. You might not got to lead into something. Right. And I think that communicates a spirit and an energy that communicates to other people's spirit. Like I said, like when people do a spiritual work, you can talk to them. It communicates a spiritual thing that like, oh, like what's going on? And sometimes it might be us opening up with a poem, and what we say in a poem is like, damn, you saying that? You about to go in that bag?
Your spoken word that you open with. That's
yeah. Sometimes the way we talk about our history. And some things like how we say, how we look. So I think also those things are part of the spiritual things because people got assumptions about us, about the world, about what they think is possible. And I think when you invite ancestors, they open up other possibilities.
Yes.
Absolutely. I would be remiss if I didn't apparently shout out my mom who is on. Hi, Mommy.
Welcome.
And another one of my daughters is on. So what's up?
Memory is all too. You got the whole team on. You got the whole team on.
You know, how I met Cory and H.O.L.L.A was probably 5 years ago or so at Beyond the Bars, and his, we come to hear what you come to do. That again, simple and profound.
Yes.
It's like, well, who is this guy? Who are these people? And I need to be with them because they are talking about healing on a serious level. And so I just want to acknowledge and shout that out because that is what it is. I came to hear what you come to do. I come to build what you come to do, right? And as I do circle work behind the walls, I've had just so many amazing experiences and just the opportunity that I don't take lightly because nobody was doing circles at the facility where I work. So at San Quentin, yes, lots of circles, lots of work, work on self, lots and lots of it. But at the county jail, are you kidding me? At the county jail, nobody did anything, right? Everybody is there. They didn't do nothing. And I was really afforded the opportunity because I may have pushed a few lines to do circle work with small groups of young men. I've been working primarily with 18 to 25-year-olds. And like Cory said, there's so much that goes into the preparation of self for that work. Because one, they are not easily able to articulate what they're thinking beyond anger. be in touch with emotions. All these different things may or may not have any uh, background with spirituality, and then we do it over a series of weeks. So I was doing healing work with the young men. We would meet twice a week for about 10 weeks, because you talk about having to build a safe space. Um, that's what we had to do, and I was able to handpick the guys that were going to participate. And it's just been an incredible journey and an incredible experience to be able to do that work with them. And it, you know, healing, I've been in a lot of healing circles, and they look different depending on where they are and who's in them. I know, shout out to Malachi and R Joy, who do a
Yep.
Black male healing circle every week. Again, amazing. It started off once a month, and then the brothers realized that they needed more, and now they, well, before the pandemic, they were doing it once a week. I think they're still doing it virtually. I would like to, you know, in my infinite free time, I'd like to start a healing circle for Black women. You
Yep,
know,
I'll
because
be
as
there.
you were talking about just how we're impacted, particularly by white women, and you mentioned early on in the conversation about the things that we are, you know, people talk about or focus on: our hair, our earrings, you know, whether I wear a head wrap or not a head wrap, how I dress, you know, how I speak, how I look, all these different things that, and especially in a management position, you know, nobody is ready for a boss who looks and carries herself like I do, where I'm professional, but I'm also blackety, unapologetically
Yes.
Black. And I push lines for the well-being of the men who are in custody where I work. And so the healing spaces are important, the circles are important, and we don't do them enough. We don't do them enough, at least in my opinion. Out here, we're not doing enough circles. We're not doing enough healing work in our communities as we should be. And the other thing that I'm gonna name, which, you know, doesn't make me popular, but I always will always speak the truth, is that there are, my experience, I've come into far too many spaces with people who are doing the work but haven't done their work. And I've seen how that has manifested in harming of the people that you are supposed to be helping. And so we need to do more in order to offer opportunities for people to do their healing work. Because some people don't even think that they necessarily need it.
Uh-huh.
I'm clear that I need it every day, every single day. What did I say this morning? I'm getting myself together so I can be ready to participate. The work is continuous, it's ongoing. You are never healed, and you
For
will
life.
never arrive.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Healing is for all of us,
Yes.
all the time.
So
10,
I
10.
wanted to kind of touch on, trying to see how to say this. So it's so important for us to share our stories. And I love that Instagram now has that share Black stories, you know, little sticker, because we need that. So what do you think about, are there certain topics that we just need to have in the Black community, and then certain times we share our stories in the white community? Because there's this, I like to look at white supremacy as like a monster with lots of hands, because their hand is on every aspect of Black lives. So there's this hand that takes our stories of oppression and either distorts them, erases them completely, or they fetishize it, like we see like the Black death porn now. So how do we reclaim our stories of oppression when that happens?
Yeah, I think just of late, like our documentary, We Came to H.O.L.L.A, is coming out to, this Sunday, June 28th, 8 p.m. on H.O.L.L.A TV, our YouTube channel.
5 p.m. on the West Coast.
5 p.m. on the West Coast, 8 p.m. Eastern time. But shout out to Phelan Jones, the person who edited, recorded it, and helped us direct it and like break it down. A white person from UK. And when we was talking like 3 years ago about the documentary, like the rituals that we walked him into was just like starting with our ancestors. And like, yo, this is what our ancestors built with y'all, with your ancestors. We usually lose our knowledge. Our knowledge usually get taken, or get misdistorted or disrupted. Like if we share our stories, we need to understand like that can't like work that way. And that we need to own our stories, and et cetera, et cetera. And he was on that time too. And then long story short, he kind of did our whole documentary with mad edits, mad circle rituals, mad healings, mad parties, mad feedback, all for free.
Wow.
All for free. It's going to be a beautiful documentary. But I think that's one way. I don't know if that's like reclaiming our story, but I think that was about healing, about relationships. Like, those are our stories. He was helping us get them out, and it's his story in that too, and it's his work too. But he wasn't trying to own it. Yes. So I think that's one reason, and I think part of that was because he understood where we started at as a relationship, and what that meant for us moving forward, going forward, and he walked with that. So I think other day we did another interview like 2 days ago with another UK like news channel, and we told them the same thing. Like, yo, we just, whatever you take, you can make 6 minutes. We need to see it, but we also need to own the footage that you have, like having footage. And they was talking about that's against legal, right? And we're like still in negotiation with them, and talking to them and trying to figure it out, because we're saying like, yeah, like I don't know why it's like all of that legal stuff is part of the punishment system and part of the historical structural administration of like stealing our life and stealing our stuff. And like we need our stuff. We not starting from there. We don't want to keep reproducing that. But having those conversations, knowing yourself, knowing the people, journeying like that, I think that's one way.
Okay. Yeah.
Also, understanding my power, understanding our power, and what my boundaries are, if you will. There was a 2020 was going to do a story on restorative justice. They did a series of interviews with me about the trauma and tragedy and loss that my family has experienced over a short period of time. It went really well. I have learned how to tell my story different ways in different spaces. And at the end, when they were putting the final touches on, they were asking me if they could have some photos of my children. And I said, no.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. We're not doing that. We're not gonna, I'll share my story as a mom, from my perspective, as a mom of what we went through. But to put my kids' pictures out there nationally, and no, we're not doing that. And so they never ran the story, and I'm okay with that. And so I say that to say that there are going to be times when I have experienced where it doesn't happen, because I need to be protective of my spirit, my story, my family, and be okay with that. Even in what we were going through, and I shared with you all, what we're still dealing with, where an organization was co-opting my kids' event, and it was some money issues, and we just pulled back and said, you know what? We're suspending interaction with this organization until after the event. And then they want to be insistent on, no, here's the money, you can cash the check, blah, blah, blah. And we're like, no, we can't be bought or paid for, right? And it's not like we got an overabundance of money, but we do have is principle, and we have unity among our family and among our team. We got spirit, and it's going to go forward, period. And being able to understand that sometimes what you want to do may not be able to be done, because you have to push a line, and you have to have boundaries, and you have to know that I'm not compromising. I'm not compromising my Blackness. I'm not compromising my integrity. I'm not compromising anything. And being okay with, okay, well, then you don't get this, or the interview doesn't happen, or whatever. I think that that's an important part of us too, in owning our stories. And I get to choose the narrative. I get to choose how much I want to share or not share. And being able to discern when an interview turns into really like you nosy and being a little bit like voyeuristic.
Yeah.
Also, I'm just clear, like I said, I'm just accountable to my ancestors. I'm not trying to be mean. I got no problems
Right.
just building with white folks, like being accountable to my ancestors, like, and I think that's like just part of like being accountable to them, and also like loving them, and also learning from what moment and learning from what could happen, what could be possible too.
Right, and learning from our ancestors and what has happened.
Yes.
And what has exactly.
What has happened? You know, we have to really we have to really understand what happened within even the Black Panther movement.
Exactly.
You know, what were the things that was its demise, and being cognizant of who we let into our spaces,
Exactly.
even people who look like us. Like, we have to be aware and we have to be cognizant. And I'm gonna meet you where you are, but everybody doesn't get to be in my inner circle. Now you could be in the outer court, but my inner circle, not so much.
Yeah, yeah.
Like 13 minutes to
You mentioned your family going through some trauma, and I was very saddened to read that your middle son passed. So I wanted to ask you if you would mind sharing kind of how you used your experience as a facilitator in the trauma, like how you were able to bring healing to your family, and kind of, did you have to kind of, because you're coming at it as a mother, but you also are bringing your facilitator knowledge. So did anything change aside from like the intimacy of the space, that when you're working with your family than when you're not working with your family members? If that makes sense.
It does make sense. So my family it was about the healing of them, and everybody's healing journey looks different, and everybody's way of dealing with grief and loss and trauma and tragedy is different. And one of the biggest things that we learned is to give everybody the space to heal and journey the way that they need to. There's really no right or wrong way to it, but what we do is talk all the time. And we talk about, so it was my middle son, my bonus son, and also my godson, who both passed away. And the devastation, on all of us. But I also understood that I didn't have the luxury of falling apart. I had to figure out how to manage my grief and my hurt and my devastation, because I understood my position in the family. And I knew that, I say this all the time, like right now, I have 5 kids, 2 grandkids, a daughter-in-law, and 2 elderly parents, and my dad has dementia. That's my life. So if I fall apart, it's a whole nation that's going to be impacted. And that's just my family. And so again, managing everything, managing my emotions, and being as supportive as I could for my kids. And at the point where I knew early on that I was emotionally unavailable to my kids, we also had a whole village that was there for them. And that was extremely important. In terms of the work, when this isn't even work. I say this all the time. It's not what I do, it's who I am. And I am very, very, very clear, abundantly crystal clear, that God has called me to do this work. I'm clear about that. And God don't change his mind. So it's not like, oh, Ayoola, well, you went through this and this and this, you don't actually have to do this work anymore. No, that's not it. And after Deshaun died, it was the first time ever that I didn't want to do the work anymore. And then you got that one friend who just kind of gives you the side eye and says, well, what else are you going to do? And that, again, simple but profound, because what else am I going to do? This is what I was called to do, and this is what I do. And it really made me go harder. It made me want to do more and help other people to heal and understand how they become people who harm other people. Because people have to understand, we're not making excuses for behavior, but can we help people understand how you can pick up a gun and kill somebody else, right? And so that's pretty much how it's happened for me. I do a lot of writing. We talk about self-care and what gets us through. I do a lot of writing because it gets all the energy out of my system. You spoke early about triggers. I have been triggered all the time. But recognizing I'm being triggered right now, and depending on the space, if I'm behind the walls, if I'm in San Quentin in particularly, I will acknowledge. You know, if I have to speak, I'll say, you know, I'm triggered, so give me a second to pull it together. Or there'll be times where I can't acknowledge it publicly, and I'll just put it in my pocket, and then I'll sit with it later. But what I don't do is not act like I'm not triggered, or I'm not impacted, or like what Cory said. I really like that. I never said it in that way. Leaning into it, because that gives me another opportunity to heal, another opportunity to grow. And there have been many things that have come out of what my family and I went through. And one of them is when I share our story, I sit in circles with men and women who have caused the kind of harm that we've experienced. It helps them to heal. It helps them to understand the impact of harm on families, not just the day it happened, but forever. You know, and also being able to dispel, again, some of the cliches and the things that people say. Closure, that's like this aloof thing that doesn't really exist. No. Like closure, that's not a real thing. And people say it all the time. And so that's some of the ways that I have that our loss and our harm has helped others, if you will.
Beautiful. Thank you so much for being transparent and sharing that.
Fire.
So we have a few more minutes before we close out. So I have one last question, and then I would love to end it with speaking a few words that we want to manifest, put out in the universe for the future that we want to see. And then taking a moment to, those who have joined us, if you want to type in names of one of the many people that have been stolen from us, or just reflect on the people who have been taken from us. I would love it if the three of us could call out some names of the people that we are demanding justice for, and then have a moment of silence. So let's go with the last question. I wanted to know from both of you, what has been one of the biggest things that you've had to let go within yourself to heal, to move forward, to be who you want to be your better version?
I don't think it's one of the big things. I think understanding the concept of sacrifice, which I think is related to transformation. So I think, like when I was in school and I decided I wanted to leave prison and go into school, like I had to sacrifice and transform to be a student. Like last time I was in school, I left in handcuffs out of high school, and then I'm going to college like 9 years later after prison. And I had to like think about my relationship at school and all those bad experiences leading up to me going to college now. Also had to like sacrifice a lot of work time, a lot of other time to do school. And I just like had to make a decision. Do I want to work more? Do I want to go to school more? And I still work, but that was a big choice I had to make. Same thing when I got married. Like I think I had to ask myself like do you have enough to like be what like a husband is? And when I kept asking, it took me like, that was like one of the like longest like decisions, like 6 months or something. I was thinking about that. And like, as I kept going to that answer, I realized that like who I was and who I was to that day and lived before, like if I was going that way, some of those things will have to go. Like how I like was trying to date many women, or like not at the same time, but always trying to like talk to a lot of girls. Like the lack of faith I had in myself to be able to love somebody.
It's powerful.
And like and sustain love more than like a week or a day or a month. Like, do you really need to sustain love for a year, 2 years? And like I had to like sacrifice certain things. I think the thing about growth and transformation is like and it's all related to knowing who you are, and knowing like if you're going somewhere, you might have to like become something different, or you might have to shift something in you, or you might have to study or strive for something different to help you get there. And those things require like discipline and trust in yourself.
Thank you.
The question was, what did I give up?
What's something that's really impacted you that you had to let go to heal to become a better version of yourself?
I think two things. One is, and I got this really a long time ago, is not be married to outcomes. Not be married to outcomes. That I may not ever see somebody change or heal or grow or whatever, and I'm okay with that, because I know that I gave 120% in every interaction. So that's a big thing, is not being married to outcomes, not taking stuff personal.
Yep.
Those are big lessons, I think, for anybody in this space. Is we may not ever see it, but that doesn't mean it doesn't happen. So those two things. And also in I don't know if this is a letting go, but it was definitely a freeing moment, is that people either really, really, really like me, or they really, really, really don't.
That's
And
me.
I'm okay with that. You know, I was always different growing up. I was just always different, and different in my mind was bad or not good enough or worse or whatever. And what I've learned is different is just different. It's not better, it's not worse, it's not bad, it's not good, it's just different. Let me embrace being different.
Yes, yes. Thank you so much. This has been such a beautiful talk. So, one or two words that you want to manifest? For me, I want Black healing.
I would say more connections to our ancestors' love.
Ooh. Oh, wow.
Follow that.
Right? I would say, like, really both of the things you all said. Black healing, and for us to love on each other. You know, just, can we just meet people where they are?
Yes, yes, yes.
But also, when we meet them, can we all just keep pushing each other to go further?
Absolutely, absolutely.
And with the love, right?
Absolutely. You know, but that's just so important, is just, you know, meeting people where they are, and pushing them to go further, to go forward in a loving and nurturing way, and then occasionally with the business.
Powered by love.
Shout out to both of you two for like in like 2 days ish putting this together and jumping on early in Cali and coming way over to Queens. Shout out to like my wife, my son, and my moms and my dog for letting us use the house.
He said his dog.
It is a cute dog.
Let's use the house, man. Thank everybody for tuning in and for checking in with us, man. We Came to Hill is definitely coming out June 28th on H.O.L.L.A TV. It's an hour, 15 minutes long. Gonna get into some of the themes that we talked about today, man. Can't wait to hear your feedback on that.
Absolutely.
And we'll be putting, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, shout out to Var, who's been he's been watching us, and he's my son's best friend, and they've been best friends since they was probably 10 years old. So shout out to that. And also the documentary, reiterating what Cory said, the documentary is Sunday, 5 o'clock on the West Coast, 8 o'clock on the East Coast. I've already seen it. People who know me know, if it broke me down, it is really, really, really good. But I also want to shout out the report back. Listen, the report back, download it on some kind of media, music, whatever. The report back is the truth. You too might come away with a tattoo.
Yo, I see Risto just joined us too. Risto is the producer of the report back, a 20-song album, all made by young people, made by community, like really capturing 3 years of us having healing circles and turning it into like music and poetry and like truth.
Yeah,
absolutely.
it's so impressive. And we will have links to everyone's social media as well as to the YouTube and to their album. We'll have it on IG after this wonderful discussion ends. So I would love to just have one moment of silence for all of our fallen lights or stolen lights. We will never forget any of you, and we will fight for you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much for being here.
Oh, my latest tattoo, all power to the people.
Yes.
Peace.
Peace.